free speech goes on. So it turns out that your administrators are a bunch of hacks. Pathetic crybaby wusses who only care about the melting snowflakes, who didn't even have the balls to show up, by the way. You got 35 people, 35 security people for little old me. No, not even any protesters, just for me, because of my jujitsu skills and my massive 5'9", 165 Jewish frame. Okay, so I want to start. I come bearing gifts, particularly for the social justice warriors. So I keep hearing that you fellas, that you party people, that you want to, you're wearing around these safety pins. So I brought a whole pack of safety pins just for you. And then to accompany those, I brought the diapers you ought to be wearing. So you can pin that up. You self-indulgent, pathetic children who can't handle anybody who has an opposing point of view. Yeah, you're real strong. You're real tough. So strong and so tough, you have to stand behind the security and the police officers that you're bashing every single day. Damn! I promise you, in the privacy of their own homes, every member of that security team and every member of the police force is in agreement with me, not the people who they're protecting from my supposed free speech threat.
So white officer Alan Harupjo shot and killed the black Somali stabbing suspect in Ohio and is being paraded as a hero. That's interesting. Well, Tariq joins us now to explain. Tariq, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tucker.
Oh, of course. This struck me when I read it as a pretty cowardly thing for you to say for a bunch of reasons, but mostly because it's so imprecise. Okay. You don't spell out what you mean. You say that that's interesting. Why is that interesting? Would it have been better if this guy, the murderer, had continued to hack people with a butcher knife? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying, Tucker, what's cowardly is to make up a false narrative that I didn't say or even imply by saying that I was not impressed or I was dissatisfied with the police's work. And basically, that tweet was very vague. It was very neutral. It was basically a statement. It wasn't even my opinion. So for you to start off the segment saying that it was cowardly, that's disingenuous.
Look, I'm having you on, Tariq, to explain yourself, and I'm asking you, what did you mean by that? Is the guy,
and I'll be glad to do that.
Who shot this guy a hero, or isn't he?
I'll be glad to answer that, but I don't want to do the false narrative thing because that's just very disingenuous, and I like to bring truth to power.
The question.
Now, let me explain what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't think that the guy was wrong for what he did. The guy was a hero. The comment wasn't meant to racialize the actual shooting and the event itself. When that happened, online, there were a lot of people who played the race card, and the minute they found out who the suspect was, they kept talking about black Somalian, then they started talking about Black Lives Matter, then they started talking about Obama, then they racialized it. So that's normal.
I'm sorry. So there's only so much I can take. I spent all afternoon listening to your podcast, which is the most racialized thing I think I've ever listened to in my life. And not
which is not true. Which is not true.
Let me say this. You sent a series of tweets here noting the race and the nationality of the terrorist, and you also put quotes around the word terrorist. If you drive your car through a crowd of people and murder someone with a knife, are you not a terrorist? Why did you put quotes around?
I didn't say that the man. I didn't say that the man wasn't a terrorist. Tucker, are you going to say anything honest before we get the interview started, or it's just going to be a bunch of projections
I'm asking
of your
you what you meant. Why did you put
suspected white supremacist views?
The word terrorist. Okay.
Because I didn't know if the guy was a terrorist or not. I didn't know if he was a suspect. I didn't know if that was the only suspect. So I didn't have all the facts. I wanted to wait for all the facts to come in before I labeled people, which is what you should do.
Okay. If someone drives his car through a crowd of people, here's what we knew from the first moment this happened. A guy drove his car through a crowd of people, intentionally hitting them, and then he attacked one of them with a knife. What else do you need to know in order to conclude that man is committing an act of terrorism? What's the missing piece there for you?
We didn't get all the facts initially because initially they said that there were other suspects. So I didn't have all the facts in. So I wasn't in the position to label anybody or bring my opinion to the table. I wanted to wait to see what all the facts were before I labeled people. And that's what you should do, Tucker.
No, you didn't. What you were trying to do is incite race hatred, which is what you do for a living, making this about race from the very start, when in fact race played no role. Now, you make the claim repeatedly in your writings and on your show, this is a, quote, white supremacist country. The guy who did this was imported here at taxpayer expense from Somalia. He was living, I believe, entirely on taxpayer expense. It was government-subsidized education at Ohio State. Why would a white supremacist country import Africans in large numbers and then pay for them to live here? I don't understand. It doesn't speak in narratives. It doesn't really fit your narrative, does it?
So we don't live in a system of complete white supremacy? Everybody's lying, Tucker?
Huh. So the overwhelming majority of immigrants to this country are non-white. Why would a white supremacist country import massive numbers of non-white immigrants? Not to blow your mind,
when you say non-white, I mean, there's Hispanic people who you say are non-white, but they're labeled as white. There are a lot of people who are classified as white that you say are non-white. So you play this racialized game. So who's non-white and who's white?
Okay. Look, I guess the point I'm making is that it's not 1955. It's a totally different country from the one you seem to be addressing on Twitter and in your podcast. Then answer this.
How's it different, sir?
In your tweet, it's different in this way. It is an entirely multi-ethnic country. It's not just black people and white people, one oppressing the other. It's a much more complicated landscape, as you may have noticed if you go outside. And so when you tweet out that this is a story of a white man killing a black man, that is misleading. That's not at all what happened. There was no racial motive that we know of here, and you're implying there was.
I didn't say there was a racial motive.
Your financial. Well, of course you did. You said the white officer shot a black Somali suspect.
Tucker. This is Fox News. You guys are the race casino. Forget about the race card. You play the race casino. So it's very hypocritical for me to specify the race of a suspect and a police officer, and that is supposed to be some kind of problem when you guys do it all the time and arbitrarily blame black people for everything negative in this country.
Here, I'm not even going to rise to the debate. Let me just say that I think when normal people, and I'm excluding you from that category, watched what happened yesterday, they didn't see the race of the terrorist or the race of the cop. They saw an American stopping a lunatic from murdering more people on a college campus.
So why did your white supremacist colleagues make it racial? So why did they make it racial? Why did so many people in the right? And how did they make it racial?
I don't know one person on any network who looked at this and said, here you have a white man killing a black man. They said, here you have a police officer, representative of order,
black Somalian,
stopping a mass murder from continuing.
So was it Black Lives Matter fault? You guys always seem to blame Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is any black person you choose to make Black Lives Matter. So
right, okay, I'm missing the thread of your argument.
Group justice is more important than individual justice. This is what you keep hearing, I'm sure, from some of your teachers about social justice. Social justice is garbage and crap. Social justice is a bunch of nonsense. And the reason I say this is because social justice inherently, the term social justice means not individual justice. In other words, what you do personally doesn't matter if you are part of a group. If you are part of a bigger group, your group identity trumps who you are as an individual. Right? There must be social justice. So the fact that in the United States, black people have been put upon in the United States, and there's been a tremendous and undeniable history of racism in the United States, that means that an individual black person has to be treated differently than an individual white person under the dictates of social justice. This is nonsense, and in fact it's racism. Because the fact is individuals should be treated as individuals regardless of race. As soon as you start saying that people ought to be treated by group as opposed to by individual status, you end up in the realm of injustice. Damn! The fact is that anytime you end up with a situation where you say that somebody ought to pay the price for what their group has done, you've got a problem on your hands. As soon as you insist that some people not be punished for their actions because they are of a certain race, or that certain people be punished more harshly because they are of a certain race, you have entered the realm of injustice. Social justice insists on this. Social justice insists that because we have to make the playing field, not the playing field, make the metal stand even, that means that if you're a member of a group that doesn't have a great history of earning, then that means that one group that does have a better history of earning has to be their money has to be taken away from them and handed to a different group. Because it's easier to achieve equality on a group level than it is on an individual level. So people tend to think in terms of groups on the left. And this is really dangerous, and it's really horrible. And it ends with more racism, not less.
Abdul Artan, he's a Somalian refugee. Now, it should be pointed out that this terrorist attack comes just 2 months after another knife terrorist attack in Minnesota that was perpetrated by the son of Somalian refugees. So I figured we'd walk around campus and ask students if they're shaken up by recent events here in their own backyard, or if the occasional terrorist attack is just a small price we have to pay for multiculturalism. Do you feel safe on campus after the attack this week?
Yep.
You do? Would you call it a terrorist attack?
Depends on what your definition of terrorism is.
According to your definition?
No.
Would you call what happened terrorism?
I don't know what happened yet. I don't know what it's about, and I think we still have a lot to learn about the incident.
ISIS has claimed responsibility.
I do realize that, but that doesn't always mean that's what necessarily happened.
Would you call this terrorism?
I'm not sure. I've been just kind of like keeping updated with the news. I'm not sure if they've confirmed that or denied that.
ISIS claimed responsibility.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Would you call what happened terrorism?
No, I wouldn't. No. I would say it was a misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding? Why would you say that?
Because I think that person probably experienced a lot of racism, and racism is a traumatic experience. And I hope that people that look like him and who don't look like me feel safe on campus too.
Do you think that it's fair game to bring up his religion?
I mean, I think that it's kind of dangerous to bring up his religion because, yeah, he was a Muslim and that, but, that doesn't mean that all Muslims are bad and we should be afraid of all of them.
Do you think it's fair game to bring up the man's religion?
I mean, I think that needs to be separate from the rest of what you're looking at. I think if it's clear that it's a terrorist attack, as far as how it was inspired, then I think you go off of that and not off of religion.
I guess I would say, until we know more what role his religion played in the incident, if any, I think we can stay away from that.
Did you read his Facebook post that he posted right before committing the attack?
Yeah. I think they're ambiguous. I mean, lots of people probably say those same sorts of things, probably hundreds of thousands of people, and don't do terrorist attacks. So I'm not sure that they're related.
Now, do you think that this is just a sort of thing that we're going to have to accept going forward? Is just a price to pay for being a multicultural, diverse, and tolerant society?
I mean, yeah, probably. When you're accepting people from all different, walks of life and different races and religions, there are bad people. Sometimes people are bad. And, it's going to happen. It's not because one group is worse than another. It's just because bad people exist.
So you would say that Islam's the same as any other religion?
Yeah. There are radical Christians, and just any religion is going to have extremists, and just because they're Muslim doesn't mean that, suddenly all Muslims are bad.
Who do you think is the bigger victim here, the 11 injured or the Somali community who's lost someone?
Well, obviously I hate to, rank victimhood. The people who got hurt, that was terrible. The good news is I think they're all going to recover. The Somali community, I think a lot of, I feel sorry. We'll know more when we know what happened and what was going on. I hope that they can recover from this as well. I'm sure that, the man's family evidently didn't know anything about this. I'm sure that they felt horrible to lose their son and brother and so forth. So I think, there's a lot of sympathy to go around, I guess.
I want to go talk to Peterson. Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest? The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
Then why were they here?
Well, how can I answer that?
Are their views in alignment with yours? At some point you have to realize.
I think that's a foolish question. Look, if you want to know what my views are.
I've watched all of your videos, yes.
Including...
Yes, I have.
Then why would you ask such a question?
Because this is my interpretation of your videos.
Apparently.
All of the people who arranged the protest against you watched all of your videos.
Do you want to disavow... I have 150 videos on YouTube.
No, your lectures, which sparked the debate.
Okay. Do you want to disavow the support... Could you let me talk to her for a moment?
Don't call me that, please.
So, I have 150 lectures on YouTube. There's 500 hours of my views.
Do you really think that you're worth all of that time?
So look, I will answer your question, okay? I've studied Nazism for a very long time. It's been 4 decades, and I understand it very well. And I can tell you that there's some awful people lurking in the corners, and they're ready to come out. And if the radical left keeps pushing the way
that sounds very much like a threat.
They're going to come.
That sounds very much like a threat. That sounds very much like a threat. Would you like to disavow the physical violence? Trans people were physically assaulted at this rally in your name. Would you like to disavow that violence?
Yes.
So you wish that didn't happen, and you want to, and I'm going to post this online that you would like people to not to be more accommodating of trans people and people of color at your events in future.
I would like there to be no violence.
I'm a person of color, and I felt very accommodating. I felt like my voice. Thank you very much.
I'm also a former Muslim, and I feel like this guy's
I'm a person of color. There are many Muslims.
You wanted to disavow. You wanted to disavow, and this is the disavowal. I am not an advocate of violence. I'm speaking out the way I'm speaking out because I think this is a route to no violence. And violence is lurking. And you can say that that sounds like a threat.
There was no violence at our protest, though. There was violence at your protest. So what does that say about our views?
It's not my protest. You know, asking me continually freighted questions isn't very helpful if you actually want to have a dialogue. You have no idea if I'm your enemy. You have no idea about me.
You won't use my pronouns, so I'm pretty sure you're my enemy, yes.
Yeah, well, I know you think that, but I don't believe that using your pronouns is going to do you any good in the long run. I think it'll do quite the contrary.
What the?
Is that your medical opinion?
What, is that your medical opinion? Like, you are aware that non-binary people are valid in the American Psychological Association.
Is that your opinion?
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's about non-binary pronouns.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
I'm
saying that that's what I'm about.
To the rally? Were you there when I spoke?
Yes. I've been here for this whole thing.
Okay, well, I don't know that. It's a genuine question. Look, I think that's what's happening is that we're pushing over a line we shouldn't cross. The newest legislation is requiring people to use.
But you are aware that that's being put in place so that we can't get fired. We need to be written into the Canada human rights legislation, or we can be fired for our gender identity.
I'm not aware
Okay, well then why did you make a fucking video about it? I've been denied housing as a trans person. These rights would protect me.
Denied housing?
I've been denied housing.
From the state or for the open market? So have you been denied housing, like, from the government?
It's illegal either way if we had human rights.
From the government?
Or
have you tried to get a house like everybody else and they said, no, you're weird, you can't work? No, if the state has done that, that's a problem.
They said,
but if someone doesn't want to live with you, that's their right.
They said, no, you're trans. Really so no, if I had human rights, that wouldn't have fucking happened.
Yeah, you're weird. I don't want to live with schizophrenic
people. As far as I'm concerned, that's a terrible thing. It's too bad that that's happened.
So you don't want us to, but you don't want us to have protections in the human rights bill that will allow me to have employment, allow me to have housing security, allow me to have medical care. That's what this is about. It's not about infringing on your rights or making you learn a new fucking pronoun.
I don't think that's what it's about. What evidence do you have that attempting to transform the way that people use pronouns is going to produce a positive effect on society?
Are you aware that there is a trans boy who killed himself in psychiatric care recently because he was continuously being misgendered by his care workers?
And that is my precise problem.
And there have been multiple recorded instances of trans people killing themselves because they are not being integrated into society. We are not looking for special treatment. We are looking to be able to integrate ourselves into society. And if you refuse to refer to us by our pronouns, which is not allowed to ask, singular they pronouns go all the way back to Shakespeare. It's not a new thing. If you refuse to let us integrate ourselves into society, you create alienation that results in suicide. We are in a suicide epidemic right now. What are you contributing to this as a psychologist?
Man, you know, you're almost impossible to talk to. You're so full of rhetoric that it's impossible to listen to you. I would be more than happy to listen to you.
Yeah, really?
I was devoid of rhetoric. And I don't really think I am a rhetorician. Just so you know that. And you know, it's very hard to listen to you. I mean, it's very hard to attend to you
because
you rattle on in with your ideological speech.
It's not ideological. It's personal. That's what you.
It's not personal. You haven't said a personal thing.
I'm talking about something that affects my community.
It's just that when you say the things that you say, it tends, even if you didn't mean it to, it attracts people like neo-Nazis and fascists because they see an avenue in what you're saying to do what they want. Even if that's not what you meant, they see an avenue in the idea of like a more abstract form of free speech. They see an avenue in that to continue to spread their hateful ideology and to make more people hateful. So that's why the Nazis come here. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that's why that was.
I'm perfectly aware of it.
I have a calm, rational question.
Okay.
I won't get emotional with you. So who is this legislation harming? Who is
harming anybody who wants to use their own words?
So in what capacities? Be specific.
Look, it's important that people are able to use their own words.
Okay.
Because that's how we think. And if the government starts legislating how we think, and
so
how
if
we
I
speak,
wanted to call you she, I'm playing off of what you're saying. If I wanted to call you she and her and miss, because that's my freedom of speech, and if everyone just called you that all the time, and that was the only thing.
Can't you tell?
I think that you don't care because you've never had to face that, and it's a common trend among people who have never had to face like transgender-related discrimination that you think it's not a big deal because you don't have to deal with it.
I didn't say I didn't think it was a big deal. I said I didn't care if people called me that.
Public institutions, but it does prevent us from accessing healthcare. And it does prevent us from accessing other services.
I'm not arguing about your rights.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
It's
about our rights.
For trans
I'm sorry. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you realize that right now, if you were to kill a trans person, because only for the sole reason that they're trans, that would not be considered a hate crime. Sure, they could be convicted of murder, but not of a hate crime. And that's what this bill.
That's what this in the States, they can use a trans panic defense in almost all of the United States and get off by claiming temporary insanity because they were freaked out by the trans person.
I am not claiming for a moment that people who don't fit into standard and traditional sexual categories or sexual identity categories don't face all sorts of trouble. They do. I just don't think that this is the way to fix it. In fact, I think
you do not think that a law that legislates protections from discrimination for trans people
not
is a way to, you do not think that.
That's right. I don't think.
Have you read the laws are intentionally worded? Most laws involving human rights.
Much trouble to as many people as possible.
What would we gain from that?
There's a conspiracy of intent. I didn't say it was a conspiracy. You think there is a concentrated effort behind these bills in order to specifically make the lives of people worse, and that's why we create human rights legislation to make it.
I think that people often do things to make other people's lives worse. Don't you?
Well, clearly, as an example of this rally.
I am probably the most fervent anti-statist you will ever meet. I am an anarchist, and I do not believe that anyone who writes legislation has the interest of anybody but themselves and their special interest groups at heart. So don't come at me saying that I want to suck off the nipple of the government, okay? Because that's not who I am. What I'm interested is in that people I love are being assaulted, are being killed, are being discriminated against, are being kicked out onto the street, are freezing to death in the winter because they're being denied shelter. And I feel.
But pronouns are too much to ask for you to show solidarity towards those people.
Can I just have a moment?
Sorry.
Look, we agree that this is a thing that's happening. We agree that it's a reprehensible thing that's happening.
Okay, sure, let's agree on that.
I mean, I don't think that would be controversial to most people. I mean, apparently,
I agree.
Apparently, some people think. Apparently, to some people, we're freaks because we can't have families or whatever. But what okay, whatever. Maybe that's not something you agree with. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth in that regard.
I agree.
What I fail to understand is how you honestly feel, in your expert opinion, as both an educator, as an educated person, that not calling somebody by a pronoun that has been used to refer to individual people.
No, I think it's legislating it. It's legislating it as a necessity that I have an objection to.
Okay, so if there was this legislation was not on the table, if this legislation fails, let's say, if this is removed, you would be totally fine referring to me with they them pronouns.
Probably not they and them.
Probably not they and them. Why is that?
Well, because I don't think it's a tenable solution.
I don't think it's to what?
I don't think it's a solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. I mean, it's not. It's not that easy to track that. I know that's how you.
You were literally saying
you can make up a word and make that a child's name, and you would refer to them by that name. Why is it different for a pronoun?
Well, it's different because it's different.
No, it's just as word.
It's different because it's a pronoun for a lot of reasons. So one of the reasons it's different is that pronouns turn out to be very difficult to change. They're closed linguistic.
Which is why we're using they them pronouns, which has historical continuity.
Yeah,
it is in the English language. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary.
It's nothing new.
As an educator, okay, hold on. Sorry, yeah.
You were asked, would you refer to me using they them pronouns? You said, no, I wouldn't. When asked why, you said, because I don't think it's a solution. When I brought up then it was basic respect and so on, what you said was, oh, I wouldn't do it if I was like coerced or whatever you said. Somebody literally just asked, would you do this for me? And you said, no, I would not show you that respect. I would not extend that amount of dignity to you.
That's not what I said.
Yes, you said
You said that you would not use they them pronouns for a person.
Nobody asked anything about if I came like with a club and asked you to like use certain pronouns to refer to me.
What makes you
just asked, would you refer to me if it wasn't for this law and I asked you to refer to me with they, them pronouns, would you? And your answer was no.
Not if I was compelled to.
No,
but we're saying if you weren't.
You said no, and then when I started asking you about, you said it wasn't a solution. When you were asked, what is it not a solution to? You said something vague. We said it's about basic respect, and then you said not if I was compelled to. So no, when you were just asked, as a matter of respect, in fact, would you refer to a trans person who asked you to use they, them pronouns, a pronoun which has a several hundred-year historical...
But that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, it is, because it's legislation.
We're saying if it wasn't legislation.
It's not legislation.
I've got to stop, guys. There's too many of you.
Okay, one simple question.
I've had enough. Sorry, I can't do this.
One simple question.
No, I'm done.
I thought we were statistically irrelevant.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't exist.
If a trans person asked you, would you please refer to me by they and them pronouns, would you refer to them by those pronouns?
Might depend on how they ask.
So no.
Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not...
Why do I have the authority to determine what I say? What kind of question is that?
Why do you have the authority? Let me finish. Why do you have the authority to determine whether or not an individual is worthy of you using their pronouns? Like, if I asked you, would you please use they, them pronouns for me? What?
It would depend on what I thought of your motivation.
What hoops do you want us to jump through?
Those are my pronouns. Those are my
There's no motivation.
No, I know. No one ever has any motivation.
We're trying to survive. Politics are a product of our lives and us trying to live in this world. We're not trying to live in this world as a product of our politics. I was apolitical before I came out as trans. I got into politics because I needed to survive, to advocate against people like you, no offense. I have one quick question. Okay, so they, them pronouns are written into the Oxford English Dictionary, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. It's actually the word of the year this year. And it does have historical continuity all the way back to Shakespeare. It is objectively an English word, singular they pronouns, grammatically correct. Do you think that you can choose to not respect something that is in the English language as a professor, as an academic, that you are going to...
Absolutely, I am choosing
You're ignoring rules of the English language to go out of your way to disrespect students.
That's your opinion, and I'm not going
to... It is my opinion.
Disrespect students.
We're saying it's disrespectful to us.
You don't get to decide what's disrespectful to us.